What is the crack? Today we're going to be looking at VR, we're going to be looking at triples, we're going to be looking at ultra-wide, and we're going to, just for comparison's sake, we're going to be looking at single screen as well. Ultimately, this video is going to show how I made my decision, but it's also going to give you lots and lots of tools, I guess, and comparisons for why people choose one over the other. So the most important thing here is perspective. There's no definitive right answer, but this will most definitely help you decide which one's best for you. So on the left, you see all the various headings that we're going to be comparing today. So the first one is cost, fairly self-explanatory. How much does stuff cost? And the second one is aesthetics. How does it look? How does your rig actually look when you're using that particular solution? Graphics quality, so whether it's VR, what you're looking at, or your screens, what you're looking at, how is that quality? How does that compare between them? We're going to be looking at compatibility. Compatibility for hardware, but mainly software, the various titles that you use. We're also going to be looking at immersion. So immersion is obviously how involved do you feel in the gameplay. And I think that there's very little debate in the immersion category, but let's explore it anyway. Sociability, which is a huge one for me, and a lot of people forget. If you have friends over and stuff like that, or if you stream like I do, or if you like to see photos or like to walk past your rig, what do you want to see? So sociability is a very, very important one. Space footprint. My wife is absolutely delighted that I take up this much space with my rig, as you can imagine. Now she hates VR, so we'll get to that later. But so the space footprint, the amount of space that your rig actually takes up, is very, very important for a lot of people. We are going to look at setup as well. Which ones are easiest to set up? We're going to look at field of vision. So how much can you actually see when you're using these particular products? We're going to look at enjoyment, and we're also going to look at the options, the availability of options on the market. So these are just a couple of headings. I probably could have gone into more detail, and at the end of it, we should at least be able to compare all the different things under those various categories. So first up is the cost, and single screen is usually our basic go-to. It's the most accessible. I'm giving that 9 out of 10 for cost. The only reason that it's docking a mark is because to get a really good monitor, like something with a decent refresh rate, all that, you're probably going to have to spend a little bit more. But in reality, someone starting out with sim racing, you could just buy a €50 clearance monitor, a 1080p 24-inch monitor for 50 quid, and you'll be more than happy. So on the cost front, single screen is the winner. On the ultra-wide side of things, the options that you get are relatively limited. We'll look at the options later, but the costs tend to be quite high. You can get small ultra-wide monitors, but they tend to have a very, very low vertical kind of a distance. So unless you have them very close to your face, they're a little bit impractical. So from a cost point of view, I'm going to give ultra-wides only a 5 out of 10. For the triples, because triples are effectively, they're like single screen, but you've got 3 of them. But again, if you're looking at those €50 monitors, you could get 3 of them. That's €150. I still give triples an 8 out of 10 for their affordability. And VR, at the start, people kind of considered it quite expensive to spend €300 or €400 on a VR headset. There are second-hand headsets available as well. So affordability of VR, I'm giving an 8 as well. So they've all scored relatively well, but an ultra-wide second-hand or new is always going to be more expensive than the other options. Next up is PC kindness, or how resource intensive is it? Obviously, single screen, it's not going to be that resource intensive, again, depending on the screen that you use. But in general, out of the lot, that gets a 10 out of 10. Pretty much any PC will run any sim racing title. It may not look the best, but from a PC kindness point of view, it'll get you started. It's not that resource intensive. The second one, ultra wide, from a kindness point of view, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Which is a relatively decent score. You've got a lot of pixels usually to play with, but again, even an average PC can quite easily power a basic ultra-wide monitor. For triples, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 for PC kindness. Firstly, just from a compatibility front, you need to have 3 ports. A lot of graphics cards don't have the ports, which allow you to hook up 3 monitors. You've got a lot more cabling, stuff like that. You also have a lot more pixels on screen in general. If you put 3 1080p monitors beside each other, so they're 1920 by 1080, you end up with like 5760 by 1080, which is a lot larger than any ultra-wide monitors you can get right now. So for PC kindness, the triples lose out to the ultra-wide, and I give it a 5 out of 10. And for VR, it's no secret, VR is an absolute resource hog. So VR, I'm giving a 3 out of 10. The reason being that I'm not giving it like a 0 out of 10, which a lot of you are probably screaming at the video right now. I'm not giving it a 0 because there are older headsets like the Lenovo Explorer, which is actually extremely kind to your resources. Even though that's probably the same generation as the Oculus Rift, the CV1, it's a lot kinder on your computer than an Oculus Rift would be. You probably see this with even the difference between the CV1 and those of you who have upgraded to a Rift S. The Rift S gives far more performance and far more quality at the end of it as well. So it's a lot friendlier on your PC. That technology is constantly getting better. And it's part of the reason why Oculus worked with Lenovo when actually making the Rift S. So that's probably for an entirely different video. The next one is aesthetics. And I don't care who you are, whether you're a real racer, sim racer, whatever, aesthetics are important to us. We want our stuff to look nice. So when it comes to a single screen setup, your setup can look good, but all in all, when compared to the others, a single screen setup really just doesn't look as impressive. It looks a little bit incomplete, especially if you're familiar with what other rigs can look like. So for aesthetics, I'm giving a single screen setup a 1 out of 10. Next up to ultra-wide. Ultra-wide can look seriously impressive on a rig. I'm going to give it a big 8 out of 10. It really looks cool, but it does lose out slightly to triples. Triples do look that little bit cooler, in my opinion. They wrap around a bit more. So I'm going to give triples a 9 out of 10. And VR just doesn't look impressive. It's just not impressive. I'm going to give VR a 5 out of 10. So like if you look at somebody sitting at a rig and they're on VR, it's not inviting, it's not really attractive looking. It's just, yeah, I'm sure they're having a great time, but aesthetically, kind of looks meh. Next up is graphics quality. Now, on a single screen, you can get pretty good graphics quality depending on the screen that you get. So there's nothing wrong with a screen when it comes to just your visuals. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I can't really dock it any marks. Same for ultra-wide graphics quality. You're always, obviously, better PCs power it better, but we're comparing the actual monitors here. So 10 out of 10, and for triples, 10 out of 10 as well. VR isn't quite there yet. It's great for immersion, but the seeing stuff far away, all that, the displays just are not there yet. So VR gets a 6 out of 10 from me, whereas all the others get a 10 out of 10. Next up is compatibility. For compatibility, a single screen is the easiest, most plug and play way to do it. So that gets a big fat 10 out of 10. Ultra wide, it's only one single screen. There's very little setup as long as your resolution is supported and stuff like that. Even a lot of games that wouldn't support triple support, they would work on ultra wide. So from a compatibility point of view, the ultra wides get 8 out of 10. On some titles, ultra wides can give you a little bit of a weird edges, can give a bit of a fishbowl effect. So that's why ultra wide did get docked 2 marks. For compatibility for triples, I'm giving triples a 5 out of 10. So the reason I'm coming down hard on triples is because a lot of titles like Dirt Rally, ACC, Wreckfest, they just don't support triple screens out of the box, and you have to do a lot of tweaking and farting about just to get them displayed on triples. So triples gets a 5 out of 10 for compatibility, and VR suffers a similar fate. VR gets 5 out of 10 for compatibility because a lot of titles just don't support VR. Now you can imagine that that's a lot more hassle to get working from a development point of view for the game than it would be to get triples working. But yeah, so 5 out of 10 for VR. The next one, and we mentioned it at the start, is immersion. When it comes to immersion, you simply cannot beat VR. But let's go to single screen first. Immersion for single screen, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. You can bring that number up slightly if you've got, you know, artificial head movement or whatever. So if you want immersion on a single screen and you want a good field of vision, you tend to run out of real estate quite quickly. Now, if you go for a larger screen and stuff, you can kind of adjust. So sometimes on a large TV, field of view and all that looks kind of good, but there are other compromises there. So from an immersion point of view, I'm going to give single screen a 4 out of 10. Ultrawide for immersion gets a 7 out of 10. It's really good, but it's not where it needs to be yet. It's nice to be able to, you know, see the nose of another car, but it's not quite wide enough. And the width isn't even the issue, because a 49-inch screen is absolutely huge. The issue is the curve. And I know the newer Samsung monitors, they have a better curvature to them. But for me, ultra-wide monitors just simply are not there yet. They will get there, I think, but for now, immersion, 7 out of 10. Then it comes to triples. So triples very much start to resemble a windscreen of a car, and they kind of wrap around you a bit. So when you're looking at your mirrors, you are actually looking left and right rather than something, you know, artificially placed or far ahead of you like you would on an ultra wide. So when it comes to triples like this, you get pretty much a 180-degree field of view, so you have to turn your head. Even you can spot stuff out of the corner of your eye. So from an immersion point of view, triples get an 8 out of 10. And finally, of course, VR. And it doesn't matter if you're using the worst VR headset out there. From an immersion point of view, it's absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10, no questions asked. I even considered, for the purposes of this, doubling up the points weight of this category, because immersion is super, super important. And we'll talk about that more at the end. The next one is sociability. And a single screen is pretty sociable. You can invite friends over, you can look at your single screen, and I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Can't really dock too much there. For an ultra wide, yeah, it's great, similar to triples. From a sociability point of view, 10 out of 10 for an ultra wide, 10 out of 10 for triples. Sociability, as in how I guess if it was an antisocial. And then of course we have VR, which gets a measly 2 out of 10 for sociability. You can just about talk to your friends while you have your VR headset on, or if you're standing there watching someone use a VR headset and you see a fishbowl effect on the screen, or you see, you know, kind of a distorted view of what they're seeing on the screen, it's not as relatable, and you're just waiting for your turn, rather than, you know, in when it comes to a screen setup like this, it kind of feels more like you're in the car with them. And when you're having a couple of beers and you have friends over, or even when you're trying to impress people with your rig, it does make a big difference. So I usually let people sit in on the triples first, learn the track, then throw on the headset, the VR headset, and then it completely blows their mind. And at that stage, you kind of you've made them tea and given them a biscuit and all that kind of stuff. And then it's down to the nitty gritty of let's go and really get involved in this game. And it goes back to the immersion. But from a sociability point of view, you put that headset on someone, they're gone. That is, I mentioned at the start, my wife hates VR. She never bothers me while I'm gaming. You'll see while I'm streaming and all that kind of stuff. She never interrupts me or anything like that. But she hates when I wear the VR headset, because I may as well, like, the place could be burgled around me, which is great from a gaming point of view. I mean, imagine being that immersed in your game that somebody could be, you know, robbing your stuff around you and they just wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't know. So that is immersion. That's why I got 10 out of 10 for immersion. From a sociability point of view, VR is antisocial. I don't care what you say. It sucks for sociability. If someone comes over, if one of my friends says, "Hey, do you want to come over and play on my VR setup?" I'm like, "Can we play on screens instead?" Because even though you lose that immersion, if I'm going over to their house, then I don't want to be watching them with a headset on them, and they may as well be in a different room. If I'm going to be gaming with someone who's using VR, I may as well do that online. It's just antisocial. Another point for me personally on the sociability side of things is I get a lot of people who watch my stream. I stream every Tuesday at 8 o'clock Irish time and every Thursday at 8 o'clock Irish time. And I get a lot of people on the stream. But like this, if I was wearing a headset right now, I wouldn't have this connection that I have with you right now. I wouldn't have that. And when I'm on my stream, I need to have that connection. People need to see me reading the chat. They need to see me reacting. They need to see my face when I, nearly hit something or when I'm celebrating. So from a sociability point of view, that's a massive factor for me. And I'll talk a tiny bit more about that at the end of the video as well. Next up is the space footprint. From a space point of view, a single monitor, I give it a 9 out of 10. It's pretty good. For ultra wide, obviously you're taking up a lot more space. Ultra wide gets a 7 out of 10. Triples are a little bit huge. These are my 27s. I'm actually upgrading to 32 inch, so they're going to take up even more space. Again, don't tell my wife. So they get a 5 out of 10. For VR is compact, and at some stage in the future, I would love to build a VR rig powered by a laptop and make it as small as possible. That would be really, really cool, because VR, from space, if you have space concerns, with VR, even going beyond the physical space that it takes up, the immersion is so great, and you can't see the stuff around you, which obviously, it doesn't pay to have a steering wheel with a screen in it or nice button boxes and stuff like that with flashy lights and stuff. You just want the functionality. But when you have that VR headset on, what's in the game, it feels like it's really there, which is a huge part of, you gain space by wearing it. Unless you've experienced, that probably makes no sense to you. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just ignore me. Next section. Next up is setup. So how easy are they to set up? So single screen, seriously easy to set up, 9 out of 10. The only reason it got Dr. Marc is because you still need to set up your field of view, stuff like that. But really, other than that, super simple. Then we've got ultra wide. Again, it's only one screen. As long as that resolution gets detected and is supported by your game, it's plug and play. So 8 out of 10 for ultra wide. For triples are a lot more difficult. If you plug in 3 monitors into your PC, you're going to have to put them in the right order. You're going to have to, if you use NVIDIA Surround, you're going to have to set that up. If it natively supports triple screens like Assetto Corsa does, you still need to set your screen angles, stuff like that in game. So triples really suffer here. So from a setup point of view, 5 out of 10 for triples. And similarly, VR, even though it is, you install the software and you can start using VR, my advice is you still need to tweak it a little bit, get those settings right so that your PC is giving you the best bang for buck when it comes to the image quality that you actually see. That takes some time and effort, so only a 5 out of 10 for VR as well. Next up, another big one, field of vision. So the field of vision on a single screen, I alluded to it earlier, is crap. 2 out of 10, no questions asked. I don't think you can argue with that one. Ultra wide field of vision, you get a lot more space to look at and a lot more, you can see kind of what's left and right of you. I'm going to give field of vision for ultra wide a 7 out of 10. The reason being, you just can't see who's pulling up beside you and stuff like that. It's not as pleasant as it kind of might seem. For field of vision, there's only one winner. It has to be the triple screens. So my triple screens go beyond my actual field of vision. So if someone pulls up alongside me, I might catch them out of the corner of my eye. It's an amazing experience to have that peripheral vision and to know, even while looking ahead, how close something is beside you. None of the others offer that. So from a field of vision point of view, 10 out of 10 for triples. And next up, VR. So VR has a relatively restricted field of view. It's better than it was. It's pretty good, but you're still kind of inside that little viewport. So you have to kind of look left and right. Now, purists will say, and I am of this opinion as well, that even when you're in a real race car and you're wearing a helmet, you already have restricted field of view. So you can see the inside of your helmet and it's blocking part of your vision. So if you want to look for your mirrors or whatever, you already have to move your head. So that may weigh into your actual decision making on how you will score it. But for field of vision, I give VR a 6 out of 10, which may seem surprisingly high, but it's as simple as just having a quick glance over, which you just can't do with a single screen or an ultrawide unless you're using like a track IR or something like that to track your head movement. Next up is enjoyment. So how much enjoyment do you get out of them? So from a single screen point of view, for me personally, enjoyment, I get about 5 out of 10. It's really good. I can be effective in it. I can set a good lap time, but from an actual, you know, getting up from it and being really, really excited, 5 out of 10. Might seem like a low score, but compared to the others, I think it's pretty fair. Ultra wide, again, it just leaves me a little bit short. You see a lot of people who do buy ultra wide, either getting more ultra wide screens or extra screens beside it, or just changing to triples. So ultra wide gets a 6 out of 10 from an enjoyment point of view. It's just an extra wide single screen. Then from an enjoyment point of view, triples I think are almost there. They're not quite perfect. From an enjoyment point of view, you get to see everything that you need to see. You don't have to bind, you know, look left, look right, because you can just see it. If you're pulling out onto a track again, you can kind of see. So you get a good field of vision, all that. And from an enjoyment point of view, being able to look in your left and right mirrors is huge to me. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for enjoyment for triples. And of course, VR is the hands down winner for enjoyment. It is the most enjoyable. Once you're kind of used to it, it's by far the most enjoyable driving experience. When you're on a simulator and you're wearing a VR headset and things are going well, you feel like you're in a real race car. That's not me being, you know, talking up our little hobby. Ask anybody with VR. This is why people get so passionate about VR. VR is so good from an immersion and an enjoyment point of view that people are more than willing to sacrifice the graphics. So, you know, it's a little bit painful to buy, you know, a 2070 super graphics card to run VR, which is just suboptimal. You know, if you get a nice 4K screen, it would run it a lot better. But that's not the point of VR. VR is about that immersion. And finally, the options that are available to us on the market. So single screen options, they're everywhere. One of your neighbors will have one. So it may not be a great monitor, but they have monitors. So the options are endless for single screen monitors. Obviously, if you want a dedicated gaming monitor or whatever, you're going to spend some more money, and there are less options. But any monitor, even something with a 60 Hz refresh rate, will do for sim racing when you're starting out. And as you progress, you may want to, you know, go for a slightly better monitor, like a 75 Hz or a 144 Hz or something like that. So the options for single screen are huge. For ultra wide, there aren't many options. It's very, very difficult to get an ultra wide monitor, secondhand or new. There just aren't that many on the market. So I'm giving the options for ultra wide a 3 out of 10. Triples, again, triples are just 3 of the single monitor. So for triples, the options are limitless. I ran some pretty questionable triples in the past. 24-inch monitors, everybody was blown away. Massive bezels, doesn't matter. The experience is what counts. So triples options are 10 out of 10. For VR, the options are still relatively limited. I would say 3 out of 10. Now I know we've gone through, you know, the generation that I mentioned earlier, the Oculus Rift CV1 and the older Lenovo Explorer and stuff like that. But in this day and age, because a VR headset, you can pick up a second-hand Rift S for what, 350 quid or something like that. You can buy them new for 450, I think. Definitely, just buy it new. You will not regret it. The thing is, there aren't many other options. You've got the Pimax and the likes. You've got the Valve Index. A lot of them get super expensive. HP Reverb. There are a few headsets there, but I mean, from a sim racing point of view and just consumer market, realistically about 6 or 7 headsets to choose from. So the options are relatively limited. So let's tally up all the scores. I'm sure there are more headings and stuff that I could have gone into, but just for the purposes of this video, I think I've covered the basics. For single screen, our total score was 87. So not too bad. It dropped, what, 33 3 points. So pretty good. Single screen gaming fared pretty well. Maybe the categories are slightly weighted in its favor, but single screen, pretty solid. You'll be able to get a good sim racing experience with single screen, and that's why a lot of people struggle to justify upgrading from single screen, especially if they're using a larger TV or they've got a decent field of view set up. There's no reason to upgrade from single screen unless you have the money or the desire to go further with your hobby. Next up, the score for Ultrawide is 86. So Ultrawide actually loses out to single screen. Now, this wasn't planned. I only tallied up stuff at the end. I didn't want to doctor these results. And even these results are not a definitive answer as to which is best in general. They're a definitive answer as to which is best for me. I think the main reason that Ultrawide didn't do as well as single screen is because I very much see an Ultrawide as an extra wide single screen. It takes up a lot of space. Sometimes some rigs, the standard mounts that are on them may not be able to support the weight. You've got just a lot of potential issues I'm just not too keen on ultra-wide monitors in general. I think they can be very pleasant, but they don't give me that much extra over a single screen. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments below, but I think that's why they lost out to a single screen, because of the extra costs involved and stuff like that. So 87 for single screen, 86 for ultra wide. Next up is the triples. Triples get a 94. So triples are the current leaders. 94 out of 120. That's a pretty good score. Triples give the best of a lot of worlds. They're using technologies that have been around for many years to basically just create a little matrix of screens to give you more real estate to look at. Pretty simple. It's not surprising that triples win out here, and I use triples. These are my opinions after all, and before this I only just totaled them up, so I didn't know what the totals were going to be. So triples fare pretty well in this particular review comparison. Next up is VR. VR scores a total of 73. I wasn't really expecting that. Again, maybe the categories that I've compared stuff under weighed a little bit in favor of the more traditional gaming experience, but there are a lot of negatives to VR. And unless you're pretty hardcore and pretty dedicated to your racing, and your racing is all that matters, you don't care about buying the equipment, you don't care about walking past your rig and thinking it's beautiful, you don't care about any of that stuff, VR is an amazing option. And I'll tell you, I know the scores are up on the screen here, and VR gets a 73, which is 13 points less than an ultra wide. I still own VR. So there are lots of other things like, the practicality of actually owning one, it's still here. When I show it to people, it absolutely blows their mind. So, and do you know what? The fact of the matter is, if I didn't stream, and before I streamed, I used exclusively VR. I used to use my old Lenovo Explorer headset, which is nowhere near as good as, the newer Rift S and stuff like that. So maybe there are different categories that make VR more favorable, but I think it takes a certain type of person. And if you kind of know that VR is for you, a lot of these categories, you might give them slightly different scores. But if you want VR, definitely go and buy it. You can buy a VR headset. If you don't like it, sell it. Get triples. I know people who have gone from VR to triples. I know many people who have gone from triples to VR. The only difference is a lot of people who go from VR to triples sell their VR headset. A lot of people who go from triples to VR keep their triples, buy a VR headset so that they can switch between the two. So I don't know what to read into that, but that is just a fact. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. And there are scores. That's pretty much all there is to it. It kind of shows maybe my thinking when I decided on getting triples. Again, these 27s are being replaced by 32s. I've got a dedicated SimLab monitor stand so I can switch rigs and stuff for reviews. So a lot of that stuff is going to be, I guess it's going to unfold over the next couple of weeks and months. I still have my VR headset. I want to do some VR content. It is very difficult to engage with people with my VR headset, and I don't really get the time to do much gaming outside of my channel other than you know, putting the work into the actual products that I need to review. And in order to review a product, I want to be able to see them and stuff like that. So I don't generally use VR for that. So my VR headset kind of gathers a little bit of dust, and my triples get a lot of use. So hopefully this guide was a little bit beneficial to you. I don't know, can you even call it a guide? It's my train of thought, how I got here. But it's pretty interesting. It does ultimately kind of prove though that the whole argument, like we did this amazing table and comparisons and all that, and at the end of it I said, well, if I was just gaming for myself, I'd still use VR. So read into that whatever you like. I'm very happy with my triples, happy enough with my VR that I don't want to sell it. I just don't get the time to use it right now. Hopefully that'll all change. I'm really interested in your opinions, because this is a hot topic, really kind of a hot debate. A lot of people, you know, if someone asks about field of vision in a group, if they say, oh, is my FOV correct? Someone will say, oh, you should just use VR because you don't have to worry about field of vision setup. So there are lots of things like that. Lots of everybody has an opinion on it. So there you have it. Conclusive evidence that nobody knows what they're talking about. It's all subjective. Buy the one that makes it most sense for you. In this case, triples make most sense for me. My second favorite out of the whole lot is VR, even though it didn't score second highest. So maybe maybe my categories are a little bit questionable. If there are categories that I didn't mention, please do tell me below. And ultimately, I really want to hear what you think. Which one did you choose and why? It's really important for people who are finding this video, who are on this journey of trying to decide where they're going to spend their money, to know what are the benefits, what are people actually buying, what are they using, and through this channel, hopefully we can help them as a community. Speaking of which, I'd love if you all hop into my Discord community. There are lots and lots more opinions from lots and lots more opinionated people than me in there. And there's just generally really good fun. All of the live chat from my streams ends up in my Discord as well, in specific channels. So do join my Discord. We've got a Dirt 2 league going on and all that. And do check out my merchandise as well if you get a chance. I'm Lawrence. Thanks a million for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash that like button. Chat to you later.